right, so you're here because you want to see how this workflow, that's right behind me, can make you $5,000. And that's what I'm going to show you in this video. No fluff, just facts and things that'll help you to get this done for yourself. So let's just get into it. So this is my business, Automation Consulting Services. Let's just start with a little bit about me so you know who I am. My name's Matt. This is my channel. This is my business. And yeah, I'm a full stack software developer, and I own, obviously, Automation Consulting Services. I sell custom software solutions and productized low-code solutions to businesses that do between $1 million and $8 million in revenue. I use sales channels like Upwork, cold outbound, content marketing through LinkedIn, YouTube to market and sell my stuff. Just in case you don't believe me, here are some of the results that I've driven for clients. You can see these are custom builds, but you can see that I generate thousands of dollars of value for my clients. And what I'm going to show you in this video is how you can do the same too. Again, just what my clients think about me. This is just a small sampling. Matt is first class in every respect. It was incredible, did the job perfectly. Matt did an incredible job, very thorough and transparent. Outstanding collaborator, knowledgeable and patient. Great communication, clear, prompt, professional. Yep. So my clients trust me. You can trust me. I have done this before. I know what I'm talking about. And I'm just going to give you the facts as I see them. And again, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. So I'm not going to be able to give you all of the truth you need to do this on your own. You're going to have to look around as well. But I can obviously do this, and you can trust me that I can help you on your way to doing this as well. So what are we selling today? Obviously, this is the automation that we're going to be selling. But when we're pitching this to a potential client, this is not what we are selling. They don't really care about this. They care about what it is going to do for them. So we are selling a strategic business analysis tool. That's what this is. This is a strategic business analysis tool. And it's very important that we get that wording right and that we are thinking about it in those terms, because those are the terms that the CEOs and founders that we will be dealing with will want to hear us marketing this solution to them in. And it is for them to make informed, data-driven decisions about their e-commerce businesses. So this particular workflow is targeting e-commerce business owners. And so for a $1 to $5 million business CEO, right, their time is worth between $200 and $500 per hour when applied to high leverage work, even if they're only going to pay themselves, $100,000 to $200,000 a year. So we're selling this solution to them, but we're also selling them, right? We need to sell to them, and we need to be thinking in terms of what they are making, what their take-home pay is, what their time is worth. And so this is very important for getting the context correct in order to make the sale happen. And not just make the sale happen, but to maximize the value of this sale. And so again, we are targeting businesses that are serious businesses. We're not going after small, unknown businesses who are not profitable. These are profitable businesses. These are real CEOs and founders that we are going to be targeting and trying to talk to and ultimately booking calls with to sell them on this solution. And these are just some general estimates just to kind of keep in mind as you are thinking about selling this, right? So if you're doing, and again, these numbers can vary. These are just estimates, but this is just helpful context. So if you're doing 1 million in revenue, right? A typical CEO take-home pay, again, this can vary, 75K to 150K. Again, it depends on the CEO and kind of what they're doing, profit margins and things like that. But 2 million to 3 million, you're looking at this take-home pay, 4 million to 5 million, et cetera, and it scales up, as we can imagine. So how are we going to position this sale? So this is going to be a 10-hour or about 10-hour per week time savings for a business analyst in their company. And if this is a very lean company, the CEO might be doing some of that business analysis, but it's likely they're going to have a business analyst who they are paying to do this analysis for them. And so the base rate savings that this workflow is going to drive for them is right based off of this salary. So we're assuming the business analyst earns around $75,000 a year or $37.50 an hour. Right, so $37.50 times 10. If this will save them, $375 in direct wage costs per week. And so the value savings, assuming a conservative 3 times productivity to compensation ratio, and that can be sometimes even up to 5 times, but we'll just say conservative, a 3 times productivity to compensation ratio. So that same analyst, they're getting paid $37.50 an hour, but the owner of that business is obviously getting more value than what they're paying. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the employee on. So we're not going to charge for the money that they are paying. We're going to charge for the value that they drive, because this workflow is going to free up 10 hours of value for the CEO, not just 10 hours of wages. And so if we assume that 3 times productivity ratio, that same analyst is going to drive $225,000 in annual business value, assuming that 3 times ratio and this wage, right? We're making some assumptions here. So $112, $112.50 times those 10 hours is $1,125 weekly dollars saved or value gained for the founder. And then if we multiply that out times 50 work weeks in the year, this work flow will be saving $56,250, $56,250 annually for the CEO. And so why can we charge $5,000 for this? Because we're just going to take a modest 10% of that. That's all we want, just 10%. So $5,625, 10%. If you want to go lower and say 9%, 8%, you can round this out to $5,000. But who isn't going to take that? You are going to generate $56,000. And again, the numbers might be a little different for the specific business of the person you're selling to, but it's going to be around these numbers, $48,000. If you get a more profitable client, maybe it's like $65,000, $70,000. So these are going to be the numbers you want to think about as you are selling this to a client. Is, okay, well, how profitable is this business? How much are they paying their people? How much value is 1 hour of this person's time worth? Who are we freeing up time for with this automation? And so the way that we would pitch this is, okay, so it's we'll just say $5,600 to implement the solution. And then you're also going to tack on 3 months included to manage any initial hiccups with the workflow. This is good for you, especially if this is your first time selling this workflow, because you want them to feel good about working with you, right? And if you even need to offer them a little something free up front to take down the barrier a little bit, if they're a little bit hesitant to work with you because maybe you don't have a good track record, or maybe you don't have any track record at all, then you can offer some free stuff as well, even before getting into this automation. Just say, hey, I want you to feel good about working with me because I am legit and I'm going to deliver for you. And I know I am, but you need to feel good about that too. And then this is just an easy way to get paid, right? So 80% gets paid on delivery once you set this workflow up for them. And again, we're using make.com for this. And then 20% gets paid after that 3-month management period. So let's just say, right, roughly $5,600. You'll get paid after you build this for them on their make.com instance, their make.com account. You'll get about $4,100, and then you'll negotiate this. And then after you handle business, or $4,300, if my math's a little bit off, After you take care of business for 3 months, this is working for them. They're seeing the value from it. Then you bill them for that last 20%, whatever, $1,200, whatever it is. And there you go. And there you have it. Okay. And so the next natural question you should have, especially if you don't do this regularly, is, well, how on earth am I going to get in touch with someone who makes this much money? I don't know anybody like that. And maybe if you do know someone like this, I don't know someone who has a business like this who's in e-commerce, right? And specifically, we're looking for people who are going to be using WooCommerce, right? That is what this particular workflow is designed for. But that is where this tool is going to come in and help us. So we are going to be using, for our list building, and we'll be doing this through cold email outreach. We're going to be sourcing this through Apollo.io. And then for the email enrichment, we're also going to be using Apollo. So this is Apollo's kind of breakdown. Again, if you are doing this on a total budget, right, you have no money to spend, you are, pinching pennies together, and you're like, hey, I just can't do this right now. I'm just struggling to meet rent, whatever your situation is, and maybe that's not you. You can do this for free. Again, it's going to be greatly kind of slow down your progress, but you could do this for free, especially if you have time and you're willing to do this over the course of a few months. But if you want to greatly speed up your progress, you can also spend the $60 to get, and again, each of these credits here from Apollo is one email. So if you spend no money on Apollo, you can get 100 emails for free. If you spend the basic, $59 or whatever, you can get 5,000 emails. And this is per month, right? This is the monthly billing. And again, it scales up from there. So you can get more and more depending on, what your needs are. But even if you want to do this for as little money as possible, and this is still doable, right? This is absolutely doable. Even if this is your first workflow that you're selling, you need to have the confidence, and you obviously need to know how to implement the solution, but you can make $5,000 on this. If you have the right know-how, you can deliver the solution, and you just have to be convincing. The person has to feel good about working with you on the other end. But the emails are out there for everyone, and Apollo is the source that we're going to use. They have an excellent process, I find, very low bounce rates for my own campaigns that I send through Apollo. I do a lot of cold email outreach, and yeah, I find their verified emails are just very good. So even if you're a nobody, you can get in touch with people through Apollo and you can get in touch with people who are making 10, 20, 30 times the money for their business than you might be making for your own business or than you might think is possible. So that is kind of the high level of what we're going to be doing. We'll jump into Apollo just briefly right now, just so you can get a sense of how that works and how we're not going to go through all the setup for this in terms of cold email and things like that and scaling this, right, using a platform like Instantly to manage inboxes and such. We'll just assume, you are bootstrapping this. You're just going to do manual cold email. You're going to send out 25 or so emails a day from your own personal email so that, you're not going to send more than 25 or maybe 35 just so you don't risk ruining your personal email and ending up in spam. And you'll space those out throughout the day using like a schedule feature or something like that. We'll just assume that's what you're operating from. You're going to do this manually and you're going to bootstrap this because you don't have the funds to do it otherwise. So that's the kind of what we're operating on, the assumption. So I pay for Apollo, obviously, because I'm doing much more than getting 100 emails per month. But let me just show you how you could use Apollo. And if you're paying for a nicer plan, again, this will be something you won't have on the free plan, but you can get creative in how you do this. So let's say you're paying for, I forget the name of the plan, the pro plan or whatever, right? Let's just say you're paying for the professional plan. What you can do is you can come in, you'll click on people. You have to create an account in Apollo. If you don't pay for a plan, they block off a number of these for you. You just want to have access to those filters. And so Under prospect and enrich, you're going to select people, and then you are going to come here and we are going to sort out businesses, right, that do revenue 1 to 5 million. That's what we're targeting. And then the technology we care about is WooCommerce, right? They need to use WooCommerce. And so again, we're not going to spend a ton of time on list building. That isn't really the purpose of this video. But you can see how many results we're getting back. 450,000 people have businesses or a part of a business who uses WooCommerce. And so the other thing we'll want to do, since we're targeting owners and founders, is we want to go up to, where am I going here? Their job title. I'm sorry, there it is, job titles. And we are looking for, let's go to management level, owner, founder. Yeah, so anyone who has owner or founder in their job title, that's who we're targeting. So you can see there's 10,000 people for us to reach out to who are doing 1 million to 5 million in revenue. They use WooCommerce according to Apollo. So we're trusting Apollo on that. Again, they might mislead us, but that's what we're going to use. We're going to go off of that. And their job title is listed as owner or founder. And so what you can do on Apollo is you can create a search. So let's just create a saved search here. And we'll just call this search e-commerce 1 to 5 mil. And we'll create the search. Great. And then from here, we can select more options. And if you have I forget what the different plans. Again, I don't use the free plan or the lower level plans. So you'll just have to experiment with what you can do here. But yeah, so you have 25, I think you get capped at maybe exporting 25 people. And so we'll just say you're going to export 25 people, right? Let's just say that's the number. Select this page. But you can select more as well. If you wanted to get all these names and all these emails and use 10,000 credits, right? $100 worth of credits right away, you could. But we'll just say we'll select this page, apply, and then it's going to give us the option to export all these emails. And again, it's just going to take these first 25 people. So if you want different people, you got to make sure you pick another page, or you can sort the list down more and more. And again, if you're operating on a budget and you're not sending a high volume, I highly recommend you spend some time building this list just a little more, neatly than I am, right? Because there are going to be people in here who you don't want to reach out to. That's just how these lists work. They're giant lists of people, and it's not all perfect. And they might not be in places that you're interested in selling to, right? So we didn't filter by the United States or anything like that, So if you're interested in selling to people in the US, then you want to filter by that location as well, right? You can filter by the US. If you're in Europe, you want to sell to people in Europe. Maybe you're in Asia, you want to sell to people in Asia. Typically, people are selling in the US because there's just a lot of wealth in the US. So let's just assume, right, we're going after all these people, right? They're all obviously businesses that are, according to Apollo, doing 1 to 5 million in revenue. We're going to export that. We only want the verified emails, so it says we're going to get 25 emails. We'll click next. And then we're going to export this as a CSV. Let's only export the verified emails. Save. This will take a minute. But then once that's done, we're going to go into our settings, and we can come back and do this later. It's going to, take a minute or two. Nope, it finished right away. So we can just download the CSV. If this doesn't come up, I'll show you where you can go. You can go to your admin settings and then go to all settings, and then just come up here and type in CSV, imports and exports, and CSV exports, and there you go. This is what we just did. So let's just, we'll download that. We'll pretend download that. And, you'll come into, let's just say you open up like a new Google Sheets. Google Sheets login. We're going to make a new one. Sign into Google Sheets. And then import a file. And the file we want to import is, it would have been our recents. No, we're going to upload it. So again, we just grabbed this off Apollo. We'll append to the current sheet. And boom, just like that. We have 25 names of people who are making $1 million to $5 million on an e-commerce business that uses, or I guess we didn't say e-commerce. We said a business that uses WooCommerce. So that, again, that's something too. I was a little quick about that. You just want to check and make sure, okay, are these e-commerce businesses that are selling things on WooCommerce? And again, if I was actually doing this, I would take a little more time to sort through that and make sure I'm actually going to be sending emails to people who are qualified customers. And so since you're just doing this manually, since we're assuming this is a bootstrapped operation and you're going to send out 25 emails a day to your 100, emails that you're going to get from Apollo with your 100 free credits, you just send out a very simple email like this, right? Hi, and then you drop in their first name, right? The subject line can be, insert first name. Quick question. We're just trying to grab their attention on the cold email. If you've never sent a cold email out before, that's the subject. The body is, hi, first name. And again, this isn't all best practices for cold email, but again, this is just assuming you're just getting started. You're sending out your first cold emails. Very low budget operation here, all manual. You say something like, I am a freelancer who sells, and then you can really just copy what I said. Come in here, and I'm going to put this in my online community where I teach people how to make and sell automations. And the link for that will just be in the bio. Or we'll even include this at the bottom here. It's a school community for now. I'm hosting it on School for Now. That could change. I'm not in love with the school platform. This is the URL. I'll post all this on here, but you literally just come in here and you take everything I said and you just put it into 100 words in an email. That's what you shoot for. All the studies say, somewhere between 75 to 125 words is optimized for cold email. That's what works best in cold email. Again, there's no hard and fast rules. You can have success with more or less, but that is what the numbers say. I'm a freelancer who sells automations to businesses who do 1 million to 5 million in revenue, yada, 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 e-commerce businesses, WooCommerce, right? Literally just copy what I said in here. That's all you have to do. You don't have to mention price or anything yet. We're just trying to get them on the call. And then the last thing we say is, you've just fill in the background. If you have any credentials whatsoever, any sort of social proof that you can point to that you are who you say you are. If you have a website, we don't want to include links, but just anything you can say. If you've worked with other clients, say that. If you don't have that, don't say it. We're just trying to build credibility with this person who doesn't know us, who probably thinks we're a scammer, honestly. And so we just end by saying, would you be opposed to setting up a 10-minute call? And then sign your name. Thanks, Matt. Or insert your name, right? That's as simple as it goes. And again, I'm being a little brief here to keep this video shorter. But that is it, right? Here are the emails. Here are real emails. And maybe one or two of these will not get delivered. But my experience with Apollo is, and I think what Apollo even says on their website is, their bounce rates are, I can't remember, 85% of their emails get delivered, I think, provided you're optimized for deliverability. Um, and again, there's cold email is complicated. This is this really simple method, right? You're sending out emails from your personal email as yourself manually. You're taking the time to do that. It'll take you whatever, an hour to send out 25 emails, or 40 emails, and you're going to do this over the course of a few days because Gmail or Outlook will flag you if you send out too many emails. And if you send them out too quickly, you got to space them by scheduling them too. Okay, great. So that is, honestly, that's probably the hardest part. Getting the client on the phone is probably the hardest part. The actual make.com automation, if you've never made one before, yes, there will be a learning curve here. You will have to take the time to learn how to do this, but I'm going to give you the blueprint for this. Again, we will deposit this in my school community, so you can just go right into school, download this, and upload it to make.com. And then obviously you have to input your credentials and things like that. But yeah, then you are just good to go, right? And you can sell this. And okay, and let's talk about why is this valuable for a business? So what is going on here under the hood? And this is a little bit of a complicated workflow, and can be a little hard to test. But what this workflow does is it goes into a WooCommerce store and it gets every single order from the last week or the last month or however you want to configure it for a particular business. Okay, and so why is this valuable? Why would somebody care about this? Because in order to get that information otherwise and to do something with it, you would have to do it all by hand, manually. Or maybe there's a plugin you can add, on your WordPress website. But it's manual, it's slow, it's repetitive. But if you can use the WooCommerce API, which is what this little node in make.com does, right? We're calling the WooCommerce API. We're calling it to this endpoint. Again, this will all be in the workflow. But yeah, you're selling this, right, to the business owner, assuming, right, they don't have this information, right? They obviously have some sense of what they're doing in terms of orders, right? They see the money coming in, and WooCommerce will give them, some of this information, but the nitty gritty details and right, and the deliverable, which they're going to get from this. And again, this isn't just WooCommerce we have in this workflow either, right? This is also includes the Google Search Console and Google Analytics as well. And yeah, all of this information, right, can be passed into a Google Sheet. So it can be easily looked at and manipulated and studied and analyzed. And that is where the value is coming in, right? And so if you have a business analyst who is doing this sort of thing manually, and you can automate this, you free up that business analyst to do other things which drive value for the business, and you still have the information, but you're not doing it manually. So you're cutting out all that manual work. And so, I mean, that's the core of what this is doing, is it's going into WooCommerce, it's getting all of the orders, and I'll show you what the output looks like, right? When you run this workflow, we'll grab this here. Right? This is what the right, this is what the output would be, right? Like this is the the output for the business. It shows you their orders, right? And you can pull any sort of information that you want from, Google search, Google Analytics. You can pull, more information from the WooCommerce API too. But again, the value we're offering here is we're going to get you all your orders, and we're also just going to show you what the traffic that has been driven to your site is. So right. So this is what we put together, right? This is the information that in order to get this information, otherwise, they are going to have to collect the information from other sources and free up, invest time, going into Google search and going into Google Analytics and figuring all this out manually versus automating all of the reporting and having it quickly and easily delivered to, whoever, to the founder, to some strategic decision maker in the business. And so if this is taking 10 hours a week, and maybe it's taking less, right? So if somebody pushes back on you, oh no, this only takes 5 hours a week for us to do this, for us to manage this, and to get this information. Okay, well then you can adjust the price accordingly. But again, we're assuming 10 hours on this, right? This is 10 hours a week to aggregate this information. And so let's just walk through the workflow so you have a sense of kind of what it does and how it pulls the information. So it starts with a webhook trigger, and you'll notice a lot of these data stores are here. And that is because when this workflow runs, it's running and getting all of the information from the last week, except for the last week of business, right? So for the last 7 days, it's going and it's getting every single order. So for the client I set this up for, they are, doing, hundreds of orders a day. So, they needed to get thousands of orders over the last week, but this particular workflow can only get, 100 orders each run. So it has to run about 20 times in order to get all the orders. And so those are saved in these data store nodes. And then the iterator here and the aggregate sales allows us to add up. So for this particular API, this WooCommerce API, it gets 100 items at once. So it'll get 100, purchases from the API at a time. That's what it gets capped at. And so we set the page number, right, for the orders, right? So if you're in the WooCommerce, back end looking at this, you'd look at page 1 would have 100 orders. Page 2 would have, 200 orders. Page 3, 300 orders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And so you only want the orders up until the last week. So, that might be on page 14, halfway down, or maybe it's 3/4 of the way down. And then it's at that 75th entry, and we don't want number 76 because that's technically last week. So what this does is it sets a page number, it calls that page number and gets all the results if they are from the last week. And then it gets the Woo total orders. It sets that as a variable, and that is just the total number of orders that occurred. So if it's 2,500, 2,000, 2,200, whatever. And then, if it's WooCommerce total sales here, is the number of actual dollars that were made. And so that it's setting these two variables. And then here we are setting an iterator to actually go in and get that value. And then this iterator here is aggregating the total number of orders. And then it's adding two previous totals here and then storing those pieces of data in the data store nodes. And then it's using this router to determine, okay, am I done? And the way that we're figuring that logic out is we're saying, did the result give back, did it give back 100 pieces of data, or did it give back 75, or did it give back 25? And if it gave back 100, we can assume that there's another page left. So what it does is then it calls the webhook from here. So it updates this data store record. So it takes the total page number and adds 1. Right? That's over here. And then it calls this webhook. And so essentially all it does is it just goes from here and jumps back to here and starts again. It gets the page number, which would be number 2 this time, runs through, WooCommerce total orders is now, it's 100 orders more, but also whatever the sales were, it's added that in the variable. We're getting that. That's a new variable now. And then we're going to iterate through all of the orders. It'll be 100 order items, right? And then it'll run through, add that up again, add to the previous totals, right? So you get whatever was in the data store previously. You're going to get that plus the new number, and then it's going to store that for the orders, the number of orders, and store that for the total sales as well. And then it'll move into this little leg again if there's 100 orders left, or it'll move into this leg if there are only whatever, less than 100, 75, 25, 93. And so this is only going to run one time. This won't repeat. So the last thing it does is it just grabs data from Google Analytics, grabs data from Google Search Console. It says, okay, what was the traffic for the site? How many visitors were there, right? All these other, pieces of information here. And, how many clicks were on the site? What was the average search position? So you can customize this a lot for Google Search Console and Google Analytics 4. And then you're going to store those pieces of information so that we can access them. Or actually, we're getting these numbers again, just so they're fresh. So we can paste them into the sheet. And then we're going to calculate the average order value. We're going to reset the page number and then put that in Google Sheets, email ourselves or whoever needs the report. Maybe it's our analyst. And then reset our totals so that it can run again the next time we want it to run. Weekly, daily, monthly, whatever it is. And that is the flow right there. And so, again, you will have this so that you can just upload it right into your own make.com and get it set up. Obviously, you will need to have a WooCommerce store, and you will need to have Google Search Console set up and Google Analytics set up. And so if you're going to sell this to somebody, that's just something you should probably do. You can do that for, pretty cheap, and that's kind of outside the scope of this tutorial, but you can definitely find, ways to get that set up. You have to buy a domain and things like that to get a site set up to then set up GA4, Google Analytics 4, set up GSC, Google Search Console, and then set up Woo for your store. You can run dummy data and test data. It would be good just to do this once for yourself before you go and try to sell this. Yeah, that would be a very smart thing to do. I actually wouldn't recommend selling this until you get it running successfully. And in order to do that, you need to have a WooCommerce store and a website and Google Analytics 4. And again, you can put in dummy data. You don't have to run a successful WooCommerce store to do this. WooCommerce gives you the ability to create dummy data. You'll need to create the dummy data too. Which you should just be able to do by going to ChatGPT and having it create a CSV file for you, which you can upload into WooCommerce as dummy data. That shouldn't take too long. And then you have, right, so what you have at the end of all this is you have a product which is valuable to a business. And so let's bring it back to this, right? Again, we made a lot of assumptions here. And so before you go in to your call, right, let's say you have someone gets back to you on your cold outreach, right? One of these people, or from the spreadsheet, right? One of these people you reached out to, they actually got back to you. And they said, hey, that actually sounds really interesting. Like, let's get on a call and talk about it. Okay, you're on the call now. But before you're on the call, you are doing research on these people and you're back in Apollo. And again, if you can get access to revenue information about the company, that's crucial because that's going to decide how you price the thing. Because you don't want to come in and price too high or too low. You want to price correctly. And you ultimately want to drive value for this business. That's what all this is about. We're not stealing from businesses here. These assumptions are based off of real data. So if this is real for this business, if they really pay a business analyst $75,000 a year or $37.50 an hour, which is not unreasonable, right? If this is a successful e-commerce business that uses WooCommerce to run their store, maybe it's Shopify, right? Maybe it's not WooCommerce, but again, we're searching for WooCommerce businesses in Apollo. So we're assuming they're using WooCommerce. We're assuming that data is correct. And then all of a sudden, right, we've thought this through and we said, okay, this is what they're paying, but this is really the value they're getting every week, and then we might consider, okay, maybe they're only getting 8 hours, out of this a week, or maybe it's 5, right? Like maybe they just don't do that much analysis. And then, we'll have to adjust this number accordingly, right? So maybe it doesn't end up being $5,600. Maybe it ends up being $2,500, right? Or $4,500. You just adjust accordingly. But we're thinking long-term here, right? We're thinking long-term, and we're thinking about the long-term relationship you're going to have with this business owner and selling them future automations. And we're also thinking long-term about, we can sell this to other people and other businesses. And this is a product in our arsenal now. This is a product that we can sell to businesses, which is valuable to them. And we can sell it to them. We can sell it to business owners, and maybe it's even worth more. Maybe you have people who are paying their WooCommerce business analysts $75,000 or more than $75,000. In that case, we scale this price up. And so that's where doing some research pre-call really matters. And again, I'm going through all this very quickly. This is not going to happen overnight. Do not expect to get results overnight. You might have to send, if you send a good cold email campaign, up to 100 emails, a 3% reply rate is good. But how many of those replies are going to be positive replies? Like, I want a meeting with you. Maybe a third of them. So maybe you get you send 100 emails, you get 1% of them are positive replies. That'd be pretty good, honestly. That's like a pretty good campaign. So you might have to wait until next month. If you're bootstrapping this, you might have to wait until next month to send another 100 emails that you're going to get from Apollo, which will be different emails, and send those 100 emails right out to people. And then maybe it's month 2, right, is where you find the person who's interested. And then you have to deliver, right? So there's a lot of things that have to happen here. It is very doable. It does take time to get this right because you might screw it up too. You might get on the call and you screw up one part of it. You screw up the sale, or you screw up the delivering of this, right? The fulfillment of the product you said you were going to deliver because you don't really understand it because you're new. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, honestly. And this is part of growing a business, but the experience is worth so much. It'll teach you so much about how business owners think, right? As a business owner myself, my employees who know how to think like me are so much more valuable to me than employees that don't. And even though I might not want to pay them more, I will have to, because they'll know their value, and also they will be driving value for my business in such a way that it would be wrong for me not to compensate them for kind of what they're able to do because they understand how the business works. Yeah, so that is the pitch. And if you have any questions, make sure you drop a comment below, or even better, come into my school community here, and we're going to upload. Again, it's a reasonably active community. We'll see how much longer it's live for. I may take it down and move to another platform, as I said, but for now, this will be posted in the classroom setting. You can find a number of other tutorials as well. We have other stuff on the YouTube channel, so feel free to check out any of that stuff. Yeah, but we'll upload the blueprint. So the blueprint will be up there, and this guide, which walks you through kind of the step by step. It has the numbers that you'll need if you do want to go follow through, right? And go to Apollo, download those emails, export them as a CSV to Excel, do that manual outreach, or, go look up, a video about how to use Instantly if you have, more of a budget and you can scale cold outreach a little bit. But yeah, guys, best of luck. And if I can help you on your way, please let me know. I'm very passionate about people, becoming their own bosses. And also knowing what they're worth. So many people get squeezed by businesses. I mean, they do and they don't, right? It's difficult for a business. And when you make $37.50 in a business role, your wage is actually more than $37.50 because you have benefits too. And you have job stability, and you don't have to worry about things that business owners have to worry about. So it really is worth more than that. But just knowing what you're worth. And I think the only way to know what you're worth as an employee is to be a business owner and to run your own business. So best of luck as you do this. Reach out to me if I can be helpful along your way. This is not the only way to do this. This is not the only way to sell this. There's a lot of great people out there who are delivering great content and great value, who might have a different approach than me. That's totally okay. Multiple ways can work. There's many ways to skin a cat in business, as the saying goes. But I will look forward to seeing you in the next one. And please, if you like this, subscribe, drop a comment, and we'll see you soon. Bye now.